This is AV SuperFriends Off the Rails, an almost regularly scheduled open discussion on audio and video in higher education. We'll sound off about our most brilliant ideas, our dumbest mistakes, and everything in between. And because this conversation will almost certainly go off the rails at some point, we'll end up covering just about everything else. And now, the AV SuperFriends. For August 20th, 2021, it's the AV SuperFriends Off the Rails. Welcome back, everybody. Time for another Friday afternoon podcast adventure. This one will be much longer than last week's. I do have to apologize. We had to cut last week short because of schedule conflicts and all that fun stuff. My name's Chris Dector. I'm joined today by Mark, Larry, Justin, and Rachel. And Jamie, who is not on camera, and I lost him already. So on today's show, we're going to be discussing leveraging students in our departments on campus. After all, we do have thousands upon thousands of students to choose from, so lots of resources there.
And it's back to school season.
To that end,
it's back to school, so the students are here.
That's right. It's back to school. If you guys could see me, which you can't, so use the theater of the mind. Behind me are students walking past as they are actually, the marching band is out practicing right now. It's fantastic. But to that end, we are going to do a slightly different show today. We're not going to be doing AV news. We're going to go straight into our discussion. And to that end, we have two special guests with us. So Don DeMello, the Associate Director for Academic Technologies, and Lawrence Eng, the Support Desk Coordinator, both from Oregon State University. And both are here because they have a fantastic student program there at OSU. So we're going to talk with them about how we leverage students at our institutions and how they do it, because honestly, they're doing it right. So those of you who have students and maybe have frustrations with what those students are doing, or maybe you've not had good luck with them, get out your pens and paper, start taking notes, because this is going to be all for you. So, like I said, we're going to jump right into it. No news, no coming in hot today. We're just going to go straight into it.
The whole thing's coming in hot. We're just coming in hot.
Well, no, I think we're coming in excited because this is a fantastic topic. So I think, first of all, just to set the stage, I would assume we all have student workers in our departments, and we're all leveraging them because they're here for an education, but this is also an opportunity to use them as a resource. But is anybody not using students at all in your departments?
Anybody?
Me.
I didn't think so.
Everybody be quiet.
Jamie, you're not using students at all?
Jamie, you have no students? I had a bunch of students when I was there. What are you doing?
Yeah, that over the last, when I look, even before nobody was actually on campus, some of that went away. That was part of the less. So there are student workers, yes, but in the same roles that it was when you were here, 7 or 8 years ago. No, we have gone less and less and less, and I despise that thought all the time. So I'm really interested in this conversation today because I'd like to go back to the powers that be and say, what are we doing? We've got 10,000 people here that we can choose from. Some of them want to be in this industry, and they're cheap. So
cheap,
let's see.
They're affordable.
Or whatever.
Well, so maybe that's a good segue. So kind of what we want to talk about first is because I've heard this phrased at some very large Big Ten, Tier 1 institutions saying they have trouble finding the right students. So maybe this is a good question to Dawn and to Lawrence and open to the panel. But how do we find those right students? How do you find students? I mean, I have worked places where the plan is literally, I'm going to put a sign up on the door, and the first 5 in the door get the job, which is absolutely not the way to do it. You guys obviously have had great success getting students on board. So what's that process look like of recruiting students into your departments?
Free food.
Free
food.
There you go.
So it's the hungriest people to get to the door.
Yeah, exactly, the hungriest.
People who eat the most bagels.
It's an intriguing question. I'm sure Lawrence has seen this recently. It's like with any position. You put an ad out there, you put your PD out there, and then the students. We can't put signs in the doors anymore. It has to go through HR. But students will apply, and you just like with staff members, you go through the applicants and. We're not looking for geniuses, but we do look at majors, see what they're doing, see what their interests are, what their extracurricular activities. Some students, it's their first job. So it's just the interview process. You get them and you talk to them. And there really isn't a true formula. We try to find students that are passionate about things. You could tell that they're doing other things than just academics. I mean, you want to see someone that's a little more well-rounded and has the ability to learn. And I think once you get them in, I think anyone's trainable. It's just you have to get their work ethic in the right spot.
Yeah, I don't
Lawrence,
remember,
please
I
feel
haven't
free to
seen
jump in.
anybody come through with an application that has like a CTS, restaurant programming, and all that stuff that's like
Well, I don't think
ready to
we'd be
go as a
expecting
student
that,
level. But
right?
I think that's where sometimes they don't even know what it is that even happens up here, right? And sometimes it is they're just looking for a job, and then
Yeah,
once they
right
see
there.
it,
Yeah, and what I have to add to everyone on the panel here is like a lot of the students we get word of mouth. Some of our students that's been working for many years, we'll ask them, hey, do you have any friends that seem interested in working for us, that have excellent customer service skills, that can answer phone calls and help out professional staff out in the field when they want to install projectors. Just learning, hands-on training and getting involved in just building your resume.
I honestly think that there's something to the idea that these people don't know that they don't know necessarily what they're getting into when they join an AV department. Because something that we have a problem with as a tech PR firm is that we will hire interns who are in college programs or people who are fresh out of college programs who think they know what PR is and don't. And it's quite difficult to disabuse them of their preconceptions. And it's often really painful for them to learn that the thing that they thought they were expert in is something that they don't really understand. But if you get somebody in there who has that work ethic, that interest and willingness to learn, and that openness to mentorship, then you can really build something.
Yeah, I think part of this is defining what those students are going to be. At WKU, our students are mainly there to just answer the phone for the help desk from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. They cycle shifts. And so when they interview these students, they look for communication skills and basically, are you going to show up and are you reliable? We're not really looking for tech skills. And what happens is 1 out of every 5 or so have the tech skills that we can use for additional troubleshooting. And it's kind of a gem in the rough, if you will.
That's a neat way to do it. Yeah. So, Justin, we have a help desk. It's within our department, our parent department. We do presentation support. So we're hiring students with our PD that specifically outline that they're supporting presentation technology equipment, not someone's office printer, not their computer. That's a different group, that client experience I mentioned earlier. So the PD outlines what their job description is. And so when they've read that, when we have that interview, we talk about that. And sometimes some students may have some experience from their high school. They may have put in their parents' surround sound system in their living room. And you get this in the interview. So when we bring our students in, it's part of that, what Rachel was saying, we do a mentoring thing. We don't just put them on that phone to answer calls. They don't do that for 2 or 3 terms. And I can talk about that mentorship, how we get them to know what they're doing here. But part of that, it's just there's a mentor process that we go through to get them to that support level, which eventually will get them to the installation and then eventually to a lead technician for our students.
I think everybody's looking for the student that's like kind of going back to what you said, Rachel, that is open to this new experience, right? They want to try something new. They're going away to college, whatever it is, and why not try something and step out of the norm for yourself and go experience something, because that's part of it. And those that may be creative and it's like, oh, there's some technology aspects that could be fun. And it's like, how do you speak about that and talk about that in the interview process? And kind of, you got to ask those questions. Like, what are you into? What do you think about technology? What are your favorite technologies? What do you not like about technology?
Exactly.
And get that out of them so you can kind of see, like, oh, you know what, you may be a good fit for this and you don't even realize it. So, when our students do come in our door here, we really press on a very important thing. It's something that I've lived by. Lawrence has heard this. Mark has heard this 100 times. When I hire students, I tell them my philosophy with the students that work for me is we have 3 things that we focus on, and primarily, family is first. And I stress family. Family is first. You have to have whatever that family is that supports you, whether it's friends, immediate family. There's a family structure that's there. And we stress that the family has to be taken care of, number one. Whether there's time off for vacation, things that come up, if there's deaths in the family, things that happen, if they communicate with us, we take care of family. And that parlays into what they're here for. Number 2 is school. They're here for a degree. And that communication is really key here. So once we take care of family, that support, school's next. We got to make sure that they're schools. They're here for academics. They're here for a degree. We're here for that student experience. What we're doing is out of classroom experience. That's how I consider it. But still, we want them to attain their degree, get what they've done what they're coming to the university for. And again, communication. If they're behind on work, projects are due, there's a big midterm, there's stress, they need to let us know. Because those first two things, if those things are taken care of and there's a nice, strong foundation, the third thing that's important is work. But guess what? You guys all know this. You know, if Jamie's not here, guess what? His university is going to be there tomorrow. Work's going to be there the next day. And that's our philosophy here. And I think if we stay with that, we've had students realize that we're not just work hungry. We want to get work done, but family and school. And that helps them know that we care enough.
You need to quit telling people that.
Yeah, I know that.
That if I'm not there, things stop.
No. I'm sorry, Jamie. I just pick it on you because I can't see you.
That's crap, man. No, yeah. I get what you're saying. But because I think that's really important. And students also, I think they don't always know that they can ask for that. Or that it's a give and take. So I like that you guys focus on that and you say, hey, we are a job and we want you to treat it like a job. But also, by the way, here's the other stuff too.
But this is like a foundation of the culture, right? And so you need to have that understanding first. And then, and for many, this is their first time ever having a job or anything like this. So this, we're setting precedent for what they should be looking for in their lives when they're talking about where's the importance of work fit first, right? And so, and we want to make sure that we have an open culture here. That is the foundation of what these students are coming through here and having, is that you have to have those first pieces in place. And this job is, we're going to then work on that after everything else. That way their mission and vision and their value is kind of set up correctly so they can then build on that to move forward.
I think that culture that you all have built is really important. And one of the other things I would add to it is the institutions where I've had the most success with students, there was also that culture of ownership where the students were really proud of what they were doing. And it wasn't just sitting there answering the phone or doing this task or that task. They actually felt like they were a part of the team and they were owning part of a larger project. And when they were able to take that ownership, we were able to do some really cool things with them.
A question I get quite a bit during the interview sessions is, how is the flexibility at work? When students have a heavy workload, they have midterms and finals coming up, or projects, can make them feel very stressed. Sometimes they have to keep up with their studies. When possible, we work with students by giving them a break, by reducing their hours, or allowing them to take extra time off to study and prepare. Just being flexible will help students feel a sense of value and appreciation. That will help keep them around, basically.
So, Don, there's something you said early on, and you mentioned it twice now. You referred to PD, which is the position description, or some of us may know as a job description. So, and Jamie, you'd mentioned that you don't have some of these student positions that that we did have when I was at UMKC. And one of the first things I had to do there was write the job description, because as I mentioned, their MO prior to that was to post a sign on the door, hey, we're hiring some student workers this semester, and they take the first 5 that come in the door. Well, there's no real scope set as to what they're doing. There's no defined areas of responsibility or ownership. So, could you and Lawrence maybe talk about that a little bit, like how you build those PDs or those position descriptions, those job descriptions, so it is, you've already stated that it's kind of an opportunity this is maybe the student's first job, but it really sets them off on the right foot if they have a properly written job description. It's not just helper person who either answers phone or points people to the right thing or can sit here doing your homework while, you're checking people into the lab. It's much more, holistic than that.
Yeah. So RPD was basically for the students, or job description, if you will. It's basically a stripped down version of what our equipment specialists do, not to the same level. Obviously, they're that tier 1 support, so that's part of it. But we do percentages on these, and believe it or not, that tier 1 support is only 25% of their duties. Now, let you all know, we have ring down phones, so there's no dialing. They don't dial a number to get to us. They pick up a phone in a room. It comes right to our call center. It bypasses the central help desk. Now, phones will be transferred from there, so that's 25% of what they do. The other 25% of what they do is out servicing rooms. And this, to me, this is, and again, this is, we're moving forward here a little bit, but we let them know that they're going to be out taking care of our end users, what they're doing out there, cleaning, servicing, and testing. Then another 25% of that is part of their installations and upgrades, because we actually take them out in the field with us. The last 25% is as assigned, if you will. So we kind of break out what they're doing, and that mentorship I mentioned earlier. They're not answering phones the first day that they're here, the first month that they're here. They're not doing installations with us the first month or even probably not even the first 6 months they're with us. They're out servicing rooms. And that's how they learn what our end users are using campus-wide. And to let you all know, I took the servicing of rooms from Dartmouth College. That's where I learned this at. But at Dartmouth College, there were no student workers, and there were 4 of us that went out every morning and tested every system, but they only had 66 classrooms. When I came back to OSU and had 300, I'm like, we can't service rooms every single day. So we do it over the course of a week. And so our students are assigned spaces to go out to each hour, 2 rooms to go test, clean, and service. Trying to be proactive because we know that we're in a reactive work environment, but attempting to be proactive and catch things before an instructor does. But the biggest key, my friends, is once they've been in room A, room B, or building C, and they've seen the similar yet different interfaces, and then when they're at the help desk or the presentation support desk and they're working with someone and they pull up that room, it makes a lot more sense to see the tools that they're messing with if they've been out there seeing what the end user's using. And that's our first part of training. After that comes installations.
So I think that piece of them going out and servicing rooms is really important, because if you have new students who don't even know where they're at, and that experience from the student, they show up on campus, they don't know where XY room is. They barely know how to get to the office they came to. And that first year, being able to go out in service rooms, if they're new students, being able to go and learn the campus, they then become a resource, right? They now have knowledge of the space that their other students they work with, they now have this information that they are holding and can share, and then they learn, they become part of that community by going out and actually being seen by instructors and other people that they're servicing, other employees across the university. So I think it's kind of subtle, but they're gaining something just in that act of going out and being in the classroom space.
Another thing
I'm also intrigued by the kind of the idea of mentoring. So, Lawrence, how do you have that structured so you've got the students kind of helping one another before they're just kind of thrown to the wolves?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Don and I, we provide students with a great onboarding training program for them to succeed at work. In the first few weeks, we let them listen to incoming support calls, just to get their feet wet. Then we let them know, these are the type of calls we get at the support desk. And then we go on after that, we go to job shadowing, where we pair them up with one of our student leads or an experienced student, show them our operations, what AV troubleshooting tools we use on the support desk, how to enter in a support ticket, most importantly, how to do it properly with all the required information. And then the list goes on and on. And then after that, we'll do hands-on training, which Don and Mark mentioned. We provide them hands-on training in classrooms, train them on installing projectors, speakers, microphones, computers, just setting up new AV equipment, testing and tearing down old AV equipment, so things like that.
And Lawrence mentioned leads too. Each year we pick 2 students to be leads. They're our most experienced students, the students that I know I can send out with a processor and say, take the other one out, wire this one, because they've been back there helping us. And it's built an internal competition, because each year the students know there's going to be 2 leads. And yes, the leads get paid more than the others. So we've fostered an internal competition for them to excel. And those leads, we had them just wire up 2 racks in the back room. Now, I had to change a couple things, but they're following as-builds and they're doing things. And as we're going to talk to later in the show here, it's fostered some of our folks to say, hey, this is a good field to get into. And that's where we partnered with Avixa a little bit on the ground, and some have gone on to bigger and better things.
At one point,
I've got on your students. I'd like to ask a differentiation, right? Because in some places we have part-time workers who are student workers, or the work-study like scholarship students. And I've always had the experience where they're different. And now, the work-study, that's part of their financial aid package, and these are the ones that just kind of go willy-nilly from job to job to job and really don't. You just get assigned somebody. And then there's the part-time ones. When you guys are hiring or taking students on, do you have one, the other, a mixture of both? Does it matter? How's that work?
It doesn't matter either way. We currently have one student that's working with us. It is on work study. The others are all paid. And And I can't say names, but I guarantee that he's one of the persons that my staff wants to be a lead before long. But again, Jamie, the hiring process, we don't differentiate either one. We'll take either one. But in asking what Rachel was saying earlier, you finding those right students, it's like with any position. We've had ones that have not fit well, and sometimes they've gracefully gone to other things, or we work with them a little more earnestly because for us, we're trying to give these students an experience working. They're here for a degree. I look at it as, even though I need to satisfy what we're doing in our department and our mission, at the same time, I take it kind of personal that I want to help these students have a work experience, gain some knowledge, learn how to work in a collaborative environment, how to take responsibility, how to take ownership. So when they move on to their next career decision, they can take some of those skills with them. And I think if you have that with the foundation we mentioned earlier, you have that mindset, your students will be successful because they know that you have more interest in them than just what I'm trying to get done. I have to get done what I have to get done. And if they're not here, Mark and I and Lawrence are going to get it done. But letting them know that they're an essential part of that and can be a key tool in that lets them know that they're a viable asset to the university. And hopefully they can take that when they go out and they start working for Justin or Larry in the future. We've trained them well enough to where they're a successful employee.
Well, Jamie, it is interesting you mentioned that work study students get assigned to you. I've worked places where work study is simply it comes their pay comes off of a different line item basically, but you can use them in whatever position makes most sense. So I did not run into that there. One other thing I do want to bring up here before we take our quick break is that recruiting process. As I mentioned, I've worked places, very large schools, where they have said we've not had good luck with students, and my response is, well, then fire them and get different ones. So there's thousands of them across the street, so find the right ones. And part of that process, I think, is finding those right students. And Don, you had mentioned that you list the job description through HR, people apply, and for a lot of these students, that's the first time they've ever applied for a job. So when I'm hiring students, I always look at it as an opportunity. It's advantageous for me to spend a little more time to find the right student, which means let's sit down and have an interview. I'm going to spend 30 minutes talking with this person to find out what their background is and what level of interest they have. And, I want to get to know them a little bit because that helps find the right students. And for a lot of them, this is the first time they've ever applied for a job formally. They've ever gone through an interview process. The first time they have to come in, you can see they're uncomfortable putting on a necktie and coming in for an interview. And that's great because we're kind of promoting this as a professional position. And that paid off in spades at UMKC when I instituted that process of creating a job description, signing them up for interviews, booking a conference room, and having them come in and sit down at scheduled times. And we found fantastic students that way. So if any of you out there are not doing that and just hiring the first couple come in the door or just having a 5-minute chat with somebody, maybe spend a little more time, because at least in what I have found is that may be 20 minutes of my day or 30 minutes of my day, but that ensures I get someone for a multi-year position, and they're doing a great job there, and I think it pays off really well. So,
and especially for universities like mine, where they make it almost impossible to fire a student. Once you hire one, your budget is set to carry them for their entire tenure. And so that interview process is really important because you either have to make them quit or you're going to be with them.
Interesting.
Stuck.
Yeah, we have a policy where we rehire every student every semester, and that gives us an opportunity just not to hire one back. So we never really have to fire one. We just kind of let it linger until the end of the semester and then fix the glitch over the summer. Yeah.
Red staplers handed out of Kentucky. I like it. So, hey, on a side note, not for the recording here for the show, but in the room that Lawrence is sitting in, when Lawrence was first working with me to interview students, we had a student in that room that we're sitting in right there, very nervous. We could tell the student was very, very nervous, and had to use the garbage can in the room because they lost their lunch. I had never seen that in my career. But wow. You know what?
Is it
still in there? So.
Did you hire him?
We did hire the young lady. She is with us, and she's doing a remarkable job. But that's again, fantastic. First job and nervous.
You can tell she's passionate.
Yeah,
she cared.
She was really emotionally invested.
Absolutely.
I do want to say that
or
sometimes
she had a bad burrito at Chipotle, but
maybe so.
I look at
even so, she came to the interview after eating the bad burrito, so that's still kind of.
You got to throw Chipotle under the bus.
Yeah,
she came back.
We're gonna get sued.
I know.
Sorry,
but hiring students. students with no experience and experience, it's kind of a double-edged sword. I go back to my restaurant days for many years, and you get those servers or bartenders that had experience, and you try to help show them what you do at your company, and I know how to do this, and they're just off. You're like, wait, that's not how we're doing it. I'm always an advocate that if you have experience and you're willing to learn and change, very hireable. If you don't have experience and you are eager and willing to learn, that's a great employee. You can mold them to what you want. So that's my closeout on that, Chris.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, some of the questions that I would ask routinely, and I'll have to dig up these documents and find them as I refresh them for the new position here, but are things like, have you mentioned them, you ever wired your parents' stereo? Do you ever help a friend hook up their car stereo, sort of thing? If they have that general aptitude, do they enjoy building things or organizing things? They don't need to have the exact skill set. I'm not looking for a Crestron certified programmer. That'd be great, but I'm not looking for that. I just need someone who's got that aptitude and that willingness and that enthusiasm, and they want to learn and how to do it. Because you're right. Sometimes if someone comes in with those skill set, they may already have those in a pre-structured or preconceived way that may not merge well, even though on paper, on that technical level, they're a match, but maybe it's not a good cultural fit. So, and Larry, I'm going to come to you right after our break here. I want to talk about how you leverage students in the past and how you're doing it now. So, but in the meantime, Mark, push that other button there.
There's a great new digital magazine from Higher Ed AV Media found at higheredav.com, and we do a special monthly show where we actually stay on topic. It's a show where we try to really focus on a single topic and break it down into AV SuperFriends style. That's the AV SuperFriends on topic, found at avsuperfriends.com, higheredav.com, iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, Google, and wherever else you get your podcasts from.
So right before our break, we were talking about the idea of developing these students as basically professional positions and treating them as such, and it's a win-win, benefit for them, benefit for us. Larry, I want to start with you. You've had great success finding the right students and then growing them into professional positions to the point where you have them doing programming and configurations and advanced installation duties that wouldn't normally be done by what most people consider on a student level position. So how did you initially kind of come up with that idea, and how have you leveraged that over the years at various schools?
Well, when I started at Butler, I came from 13 years of working at a commercial integrator. So I didn't know what you weren't supposed to do. So my first couple of semesters at Butler, we were still using the outside integrators to do all the work that was actually the company I used to work for. And I was just there to kind of manage the outside integrator. And the same issue everybody else has with the outside integrator, you just keep seeing the quality go down. You're getting whoever's available. And I was working with the support desk side, managing the outside integrators, but also like tier 2, tier 3 support. And I was working with all these students who were really, really good. And I was amazed at how quickly they were learning things and just the eagerness they were to work. And so I bribed my director to let me take on a small conference room just to see if I could get these guys to actually do a system with me. That went flawlessly. So I bribed them again to let me try to do all of our standard installs with 3 students the next summer.
Was there pushback? Was there no, we don't want you to do this?
There was pushback because I'm creating a new department, a new role for students, which is one of the things I've learned. When you start this kind of thing, you have to fight to get a significant increase in student budget in order to get the students where you want them to go. Because right now, if you only have enough students to answer the phone, that's all they're going to be able to do. You're never going to be able to get students to take that next step. So anyway, I got to pick and choose the students who I enjoyed working with the best for that first summer. And we started doing full standard classroom systems, DMPS, HD-based T. It was a complete system. And I figured I would be working with them the entire summer. I'd be right there with them. We'd do all these rooms together. After the second week, I realized they don't need me. I pretty much was able to start divvying up projects. And I walked around campus drinking coffee and checking in on them because I let them take ownership. And these students, once I let them take ownership, they were running out of things to do. I scheduled a standard classroom for a week. They were finishing it in 2 days, and students with too much time on their hands becomes problematic. And
I'm sure there's somebody listening to this right now saying like, we could never do that. We would never trust students to do that. So how did you get to that point where you said, we can trust these students to do this? Like did you just set them free?
I started to slowly back away and become a worker and let them lead while I was still kind of around. And I quickly saw that they were eager for the challenge. And I think that was the key, is to say, this is what we're trying to build. Are you in? And they wanted to be in. I started doing programming assignments with them just to keep them occupied so they wouldn't get in trouble. I would come up with games that, whoever can make this system work and do a Knight Rider thing with the touch panel that if I hit the certain key code would turn it off, just to keep them busy. And it got to the point that I had 2 students who were so good at programming that when we did an active learning room the next summer, I think, they would go in there, look at the integrator that we brought in, his code, and tell him where the logic issues were with the restaurant.
I'm sure they love that.
It was just anything I would throw at them, they were eager to just take it and run with it. Yeah. And unfortunately, I had free reign there. I had the ability to start the students, to work with the students, and those students were considered tier 2, tier 3 classroom support. They weren't focused on answering classroom emergencies. And
so they're more as a project resource, right?
Exactly. They were professional installers to me, and I treated them as such.
Did you have any integrators that wanted to punch your student workers after the friendly advice they gave them?
Several, because they used to walk around and do project checks with me occasionally, and I've had integrators tell me things that were incorrect, and I just kind of blow it off and don't call them out on it. Well, my students didn't always have the soft skills, and so they would call them out on it. And it was like, wait, you just said something that's factually incorrect. And it got to the point I had to be a little more careful about when they were around.
Learning experiences.
Real world.
Yeah.
So, Larry, in that example, you had students working for you basically as tier 2, tier 3, and project engineers, project technicians. Did you also have students doing that tier 1, answering phones and running batteries around and doing that sort of thing? And then did you grow those tier 1 students into your tier 2s, or how did you have that structured?
That was pretty much the way it was. All the students started at the tier 1 support desk, and they were responsible for any desk side support, whether it was a classroom, whether it was an instructor's office. My positions were considered a step up from that. We paid 50 cents to $1 more an hour, and people would apply for my positions from that desk side or from that support side, or friends of the group that I had would tell their friends to apply for it. So in that sense, I could get a feel for what students were willing to work, what students were already exposed to our processes, and get them in. And they had a sense of the classroom technology because they had been supporting it for a year. And to kind of supplement that, so the support side wasn't getting too upset at me for constantly stealing their best students, I had my students help me create a game for when they were training their new students. We would purposely go out, create 6 scenarios where we would break classroom systems and then bring groups 2 or 3 at a time to come in and help troubleshoot the systems with them. And so we would help their onboarding, get them more familiar with the classrooms, and then we would steal their best students after the semester was over.
That sounds like fun. I want to do that.
It's kind of like the
Summer
AV
camp.
escape room or something.
Yeah.
So Larry, this idea of training and maybe a question back for Lawrence and for Don. How do you do the student training as you work them through, progress them up the ladder of their career as they go from the initial and they're just kind of helping out and then they start picking up skills? Is that a formal structure to that you have them going through certain trainings online or working with other students, or is it just more of kind of catch as catch can as they're there longer, they will pick some of that up, and hopefully by hiring the right people, they will absorb those skills. But I'm curious about that training structure or regimen that you might have.
Well, Lawrence has them going through the AVIXA Essential AV. That's something that all of our students go through, and I think it's kind of organically grown as we watch and observe what they're doing as they shadow in service rooms, start to learn how to do support. We'll start to go out on installations and bring students with us to help do a lot of the grunt work, to carry things, move ladders, terminate ends. But as we watch them work, we pick up on which ones are grasping things quicker, and you kind of groom those. You find the ones you want to groom, and as you're focusing attention on those, and I'll give you an example. If we go out and do we did 2 floors of Into. When we went out and did that, I have the students stay with the same thing. If they're hanging speakers and projectors, that's what they do for the whole project. If they're elevating and racking up a rack, that's what those 2 students do for the whole project. We get them to be experts in that specific area because they want to learn quickly, but we want them to be an expert because there's nothing worse than, why is the speaker not working? Well, the tap wasn't set right, or black isn't red isn't black. Weird things happen. We all know that. But we want them to be excel and do really well what they're doing before they move on to something else. Not all students fit that niche, and some of them will tell us they just want to stay with the support and the service, and that's okay. They'll do more of that. But those ones that are eager are the ones you really want to grab onto, and those are the ones that become our leads. You saw Charity come in the office a while ago. But that's kind of our foundation, is that essentials of AV. That's one of the keys, going through that and then applying that to what they're doing in the office with support and service. When we get in the field, we just observe, and Mark, all the crew, they'll relay back, hey, this person's doing a great job. This person doesn't quite have that skill set yet. And then we try to find a way, how do we get them up to that skill set or move them into a different area? You just have to fill them out. They're just students. Some of them have the interest, some don't. So, and I can't steal from client services. Go ahead.
You all at Oregon State spend a lot of time and investment into these students. And for those universities that are naysayers, the students don't work, they're just a waste of time, most of the reasoning is, I don't have time to train them. How do you, from the very start, if you're just spinning this up from scratch, how do you get buy-in from the university and convince them? You don't have any data to prove, maybe you do from other universities, but what's the buy-in techniques there to get this off the ground?
Having student workers and having them take care of our Tier 1, Tier 2, and some light Tier 3 things allows our professional staff to take care of the larger projects, the larger installations, the more complex things on campus. It frees them up. If I don't have those student workers, we are now doing all that servicing between terms. We're not doing any installations on the breaks. So that's the buy-in there. The students, that from the work standpoint, our university is very, very key, as most are. You hear student success, student retention. You hear all this stuff. Part of our student success is that experience outside the classroom, and that's what we go with our administrators. We talk about we are doing experience outside the classroom. Yep. But we tell them our core. Remember, family, school, work. We tell them that's our core belief. School comes first, but that out of school, out of classroom experience is what they're going to get out of us.
Well, and from my side, like after I was able to show the cost benefit of paying a programmer $10 an hour to do all my Crestron code, I mean, things get a little bit easier at that point.
But you had to do that first one, right? You had to make that jump somehow. You had to get that buy-in somehow.
But even that
Larry,
budget
I like the way you
layout of
phrased
the
that. You
first
said
year.
when you got there, you didn't know what you weren't supposed to do. So you're just like, I'm going to, there's these students here, they want to help. I'm just going to train them up and have them do it. Not realizing that wasn't part of, that's not how we do things here. And so sometimes it takes someone to come in from the outside to do that, to shake that up and try something else. So,
but I think you do have to be willing to think that you're not the only one who can do it, right? That you can seek assistance, and students can lend a hand, and that creates real experience for them, and that's the value. It's not just the dollars and cents, that it is them going through and having a position and being a part of a project and being part of a team that it makes their educational experience greater, right? And so if you can relay that type of information to the admins that be, that's what they want to hear. And yes, you could show them a spreadsheet and show the dollar value, but if you can articulate that full student experience and how they're going to benefit by being hands-on and having something that's going to be a real-world skill after the fact, it's hard for them to say no.
And so to finish with Justin's question there real quick, the buy-in, Justin, what we do also is we do have some graphs, some numbers we show them, the sheer amount of rooms that we have to service, which is close to 400 now. And that's every department, not just GP. But something I do, which is key, Justin, is we have Teams chat here. And so we have buy-in from everyone's on this. And so I purposely, when I have students out in the field working throughout the week, I'll take a picture or two of students doing things in the field, not just at our support desk. And I send that to the people just above me to see that these students are out there doing things in our university that impact the core mission of the university. And that's content delivery.
Marketing. Tweet it.
Yeah. Well, to add on to what everybody is saying here, the main focus here, I think purpose is the key word here. Student employees, they need to have a sense of purpose when they're coming to university the first time, getting their job for the first time. They enjoy understanding how their work is helping the university. They want to know what is going on in their department and how the activities they're doing will help. For example, why are we servicing over 300 classrooms and conference rooms? Why are we testing out cameras, speakers, and microphones for Zoom conferencing? So these are examples of what they can contribute to the community here at the university.
Every instructor loves to have an academic technology student in their class when things go sideways. They love right there. That. It's built-in support.
I used to tell students, when training them and hiring them, sort of thing, that if they are off the clock and if they are in their history class, they're in their computer science class, and there's an issue, if they want to identify themselves as such, stand up and fix it. That's up to them. I cannot require them to do that, but I do point out once they do it and the instructors know, they're going to get that look the minute anything goes wrong anyway. So sometimes it's nice because the person who can fix it is 14 feet away in the fourth row, but sometimes they
depending on how good you are, you might fail or pass your class too. I mean, if you suck at your job, they might fail.
If you're good at it, it certainly can't hurt to do that, but some of them don't like to have that put upon them all the time too. So
however, I can say from the opposite side, I was called in to fix a classroom emergency one time, and one of my star students was in the front row. And I gave him every crappy job for the rest of that week because he didn't stand up and fix it.
No way, Larry. Larry, I've done the same thing, Larry. But you know what I do is when I'm done, I stand up and I introduce the instructor to my student worker.
Wow. If you ever need help, there you go.
Don brings the bus with them and throws them under. So. One real quick question here before we take another break. I'm just kind of curious from everybody's perspective, and I know that something we talk about in the industry a lot is everyone's educational background. Hey, what did you go to school for? What did you do? I'm curious, what are you all finding as far as your star students, the leads, and those who are really living up to it, as far as their academic background? Are they? I think a lot of people who are listening are going to be saying, I keep talking to the computer science department, but we're not finding these right people. And in my experience, it's sometimes the best ones are not computer science or engineering. They're coming from another area, but they just have this mindset and this level of interest and this energy. So what are you all finding as far as some of your best students? Are they coming from engineering and computer science? Or are they coming from theater or coming from
theater department,
radio, TV, or Rachel likes the theater department?
Well, I mean, it's not just a bias. It's it is a bias, but it's not necessarily a positive bias. It's these are people who often have had to learn a lot of technical and hands-on skills doing things like building sets, lighting design, building props, and they're also performative. They're show must go on people, and you need to be a show must go on person to work in presentation support. And I happen to know that this is how Alan Braun got his start in the industry, is working in the theater department.
I'm on the side with Rachel here, because our lead technician, who's QSC level 2, is a theater guy. Came from that.
The theater folks are, and I've also found that the mass comm people do. That are the ones that don't want to be famous. The mass comm people that don't want to be famous. Those are and theater is where we've had the most success because, like Rachel said, they're the ones that have an interest in the nuts and bolts of how this crap work anyway. And 2, the show must go on. So what can we do? Now, sometimes they're also the biggest pain in the butt in my hands because the show must go on
fix everything.
Also leads to, well, it works, so let's just move along. Instead of, well, you can't just zip tie the speaker to the ceiling. You got to go back and replace that. Well, it's working. Okay.
So I think...
okay, yeah, that's completely accurate. Yeah.
One of our strongest ones in Rachel, one of our strongest previous leads came from live production and theater background. Now works for AVI-SPL. But what I found recently, Chris, a lot, engineers in the past, but I think business information services, those MIS students, they're starting to show up. And I have a couple of those now. It's just interesting. It's really all over the board. I've had liberal arts students. I've had speech comm students in the past. But really, the business information systems are starting to come in. The engineers are always coming through here. But there is no rhyme or reason. But you're right, Rachel. If you have some theater background, some television production background, studio background, they are definitely an asset to get in the door.
I've definitely had the MIS students, and I've had some electrical engineering, computer science that worked out well. The one that I lucked out with, I feel like, is I had a student who was really interested in recording sciences as a double major. He was electrical engineering, he was computer science and recording sciences.
That's the sweet spot right there.
Yeah, that year I had the best sounding rooms and mics in my entire experience. I would just send him in there. He would do all the EQ. It'd be great.
Yeah, some of the best ones that come to mind for me. I remember somebody who was in music education and just a fantastic person, just did great work. And graphic design. I had somebody in graphic design and found that out and just like, well, I'm turning over all the documentation and design and stuff. I'll write up the text, but make this look good and concise and help with that layout. And then, all the information out at every lectern, it was fantastic for 3 or 4 years. It was great. So, so anybody listening, don't just look to your computer sciences and your engineering groups, but talk to the business school, talk to the theater departments, talk to the communications and the education. You may find some fantastic resources there that you just wouldn't ordinarily think of. So, any last thoughts on what we have our students doing before we take another quick break here?
The only thing I would add is make sure when you put the job description out there, be a little flexible, because if you do find a education student or a marketing or graphic design student, if you can offload some of your work that you normally wouldn't to their strengths, it still helps.
It's called delegation. Not offloading, you're delegating.
Well, and that's just making fantastic use of a great resource. So it's only smart. But you're exactly right.
And they're getting more experience in their field,
and it's more real world experience
classroom.
for them. Yeah. If you can get them experience that is directly related to their desired career field, that's a win-win, because when they go to get jobs, they're not just saying, I worked at the food service for 2 years sort of thing. But no, I worked in a professional position in classroom technologies, AV, group, whatever we're called, but they have stuff they can draw on for that. And especially if they can explain, what they were doing in a way that matches their career field, that's only advantageous for them. So we'll come back here in a moment, but first Mark's going to push another button.
As many of you know, the Super Friends have always been better received when we have more input from you. So here's your chance. Send us a note at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com and get involved with the show. We're looking for some topics to discuss, some fellow nerds to talk to, or just general AV awesomeness to brag about. But remember, we'll probably steal your ideas. And I suppose we'd take some criticism, but that wouldn't be very nice. Anyway, drop us a note at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com and find out how quickly we ask you to join this nonsense.
So the one other aspect of working with students in our departments I want to bring up is this idea of kind of, maybe it goes to recruiting a bit, but Avixa has done a fantastic job with these. They have multiple scholarships available to fund towards students, and also an intern program to position students within the industry. And Justin, you've been involved with that from the perspective of the Avixa Foundation in looking at those scholarships and awarding those. How's that program structured, and what should people be looking for on that?
To put it simply, it is well structured and well funded. So it's very well organized. I was voted in to be a board member for the Avixa Foundation, probably for a year and a half, maybe 2 years at the max. And that's actually where I first came across Oregon State Student Workers. And so back in 2019, when I was on the foundation board, we voted for scholarship winners, and one of those was Ryan DeMello. Did I say that right? DeMello, I'm guessing?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's it.
So his qualifications were very intriguing, and it got to thinking, this is a great program. So we actually, during my time at Avixa Foundation Board, we restructured into some kind of separate nonprofit, and Rachel might be able to clarify this a little bit more, but it's completely separate and is well funded, and that's the basis of it. And it's growing strong. They've actually added a scholarship since I left. So there's 3 of them. One's Elevate Scholarship, the Michael Vergowan Scholarship, right? Okay, and the Mosaic Scholarship. So normally there's about 2 students per year, and I will say that the most students to apply for these scholarships in a single year when I was there, well, I guess it was only one time because it was a year and a half, but it was only like 5 or 6 students total. So I would go through and try to get people to apply, or student workers to apply for this at WKU, and no one did. So I don't know how many people are applying now, but if you're listening to this and you happen to be a student worker, you should apply.
Get that money.
So it's a great opportunity. So I know the Oregon State people, they also use the grant program, and they could probably talk a little bit more about that. But for the scholarships, just go to Avixa's site, look up the foundation board, and all the information is right there on qualifications and how to apply. It looks like the 2021 is closed, so you'll have to wait till next year.
Gotcha. Well, I know we've used those grants in the past, and it was awesome to see the students go through that and actually be kind of paired up. And is it called the internship program? Is that what it's actually called at this point?
Yeah, I believe it's the intern program. Yeah, AV intern program.
Yeah, if you do a search for Avixa internship or interns, there's a link just like for the scholarships, and you can see up to 2019 all the recipients across the nation that have received that internship.
Was that the one that had the sponsor one, Dom, where they were paired up with industry, and we had some different ones like BuyAmp and et cetera, that the students work with those actually industry businesses and go through that, which is an amazing process to see them actually be paired with real world companies in the industry.
Yeah, the internship was designed by Avixa to start allowing some kind of incentive for students that are currently working in some kind of an AV field at universities, obviously to get a grant scholarship to help with their schooling, but pairing with a manufacturer, and it could be any manufacturer, they both go 50-50 on this scholarship for these students. The students apply with Avixa, it goes through the board of Avixa. Avixa selects them on their own, and once they are approved, they have to submit 2 small reports annually at 6 months and 12 years of what they've been doing and what they've learned.
12 years or 12 months?
I'm sorry, 12 months. 6 months, 12 months. Yeah, I lived for 12 years. Yeah,
study.
It'd be a long internship.
That's a long internship.
But at the culmination of that year, I also submit a report on their successes and their challenges from the same year. But the idea is to get students more involved, and once they are identified as an intern, we then take them under a much more in-depth mentoring process here at the university. They are more involved with, as Larry had said earlier, we let them start seeing the program, and they're starting to do a little bit more than the other students. Avixa realizes that, all of us, I was in speech pathology, audiology. I wasn't anywhere near audio-visual stuff in college. I did push the carts around in high school because I loved getting out of class. But the idea is to find people of interest because there's no formal training for what we do. And hopefully these students will take that into a career or maybe some kind of a decision in their corporation that they have understanding of AV. So it's a really neat program. And like I said, look at Avixa interns. It takes you right to their link. They did suspend it after 2019. We're looking forward to them starting the program up again. And again, like Justin had said, there is no limitation. If your university can get 3 or 4 manufacturers to co-sponsor, Avixa will offer 3 or 4 intern grants scholarships to those students that are selected. But you have to do a little bit of legwork yourself to get those manufacturers to come in and invest in those students.
Let's say
that's correct.
general.
And the whole, I'm sorry, but the whole reason why Avixis is doing this is because of as we know now, a huge labor shortage, but there was a little bit of a labor shortage in the AV market compared to other markets. And we were, as a industry, we're trying to figure out how do we recruit and when do we recruit? And we were trying to figure out how do we recruit down to 6th, 7th, 8th grade level type stuff and getting the knowledge of this industry out there.
So I would go back to the, just Avixa in general as a resource for students, right? And many people probably don't think of it that way. They think it's going to, post-educational training, you're going to go into this field or whatever it's going to be. But I know, Lawrence, you worked like during pandemic, right? We cut loose a lot of students on a lot of that training. And I think you worked with Don to update our rosters and got student access. And I think they changed some of that structure. So we're using real training materials to let students do self-paced training. Can you kind of talk about how you assisted them kind of working through some of that process?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the beginning, over the pandemic, I reached out to Don and he gave me access, gave me the credentials to get this account information for each student. So we were able to get that through into the database. We went through and looked at the criteria on which tutorials, which videos were really in need of assistance, what we can train them on to provide them the skills and experience for audio and visual experience. So we were able to provide them this information. They could take it online. They could do it whenever they had time. So it was really easy for them to gain the experience. Step by step, they could do 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there. So it was a really nice organized structure for them to get this experience, especially when they're at home.
Now, I think the kind of moral of that is I don't know if many universities look at their Avixa membership as a resource for their students, and by all means, think about using that it's not just for your staff. Extend that to your students wherever possible. Now, there may be fee structures and things like that. I get it, but that information is still relevant. And if you're looking to build out, your staff and your student worker pool, don't recreate the wheel. That they've already done a lot of good work there. You can use that resource and help you.
And not just Avixa, but a lot of manufacturers over the last year have turned their online training systems, kind of opened it up to anybody with an account and sort of thing. So if you're using just stuff from Biamp or QSC or Crestron or whatever, they're opening a lot of that up. And so if you have students who are interested in that stuff, or you may be of value to you to make sure that they understand things better or more tied in with some of the advanced information, by all means, get them set up and turn them loose on that, because they're hungry for the information too. So, all right, the one last thing I wanted to bring up here, or last topic here, is just kind of this idea of success of our former students, and a lot of whom have gone on to do great things and do interesting things in the industry, maybe not directly AV related, but in the general technology industry or in any other industry that might be using that. I'm going to start, because I'm talking right now, just by saying that I still stand at a 100% success rate of every student who has ever worked for me and has wanted a job in a technical field. As they graduate, they have a job on graduation day, based purely on their own academic background, of course, but on the work they've done for me, because they were working in a professional level position. They were just a student in that position. And so when they go in for their interviews, and there's someone's got a position open for a basic software engineer, and there's 25 people applying for this position, well, one of whom has been actually doing that job for the last 2 or 3 years, well, that's a foot in the door, that's a leg up, and that's a guaranteed job. So like I said, I'm very proud of that. Hope to continue that here as well. That students who are looking for a job in that field have one waiting for them upon graduation. It's not to say every student does that, but those who are seeking that, that's been my track record. So how about the rest of you? How have you all done with former students going into the professional world and leveraging what they've done in your departments?
Well, my favorite story, I had a information systems student who told me that he was out for an interview and was bombing it. I don't know if I believe him, but that's what he told me. And it was really awkward. He wasn't answering the questions the way he felt he should, but he saw a Crestron panel on the wall. And so when the interviewer started to ask him about his work experience, he walked over to the Crestron panel, put it into setup mode, told her who programmed the system, some basic information about it, and ended up getting the job from it. And so he correlates getting that first job, which he's moved up in the company several times since, to his work experience with me.
It's awesome.
So we recently had a student graduate that applied for an audio video technician position for a very large school district in Oregon. He told me if it wasn't for the customer service and teamwork skills that he gained in this position at Classroom Technology Services, he would never have had the opportunity to even interview. He was able to meet all the minimum requirements of the job posting, and he told me last week that he made it to the second round of interviews. So, he told me the question that, because I asked him, I was like, so that's great that you got to the second round interviews. Tell me one question that they asked you. And the question that he told me that was really memorable, that he's always was afraid to answer, was how do you deal with an irate customer? So, and the answer he gave is like, the bottom line is listen to their frustrations, to the client's frustrations, to the customer's frustrations. Try to put yourself into their shoes, then come up with a game plan to resolve the issue. And the interview committee said he gave an excellent response. It was the best answer of the day. I mean, of course, in more detail than that, but that was the gist of it.
And on a side note there too, Lawrence, he was a 2017 intern awardee for Avixa. So he was part of the 2017 class.
Excellent.
And 2 of those 3 in that class from our university are in this field.
We've had students that have come in as one major, and after going through a term or 2 or a year or 2 here, had changed their entire major. And so, I want to go into AV, and then looked at why does the university not have an AV major, and have since gone on to work for integration firms in audiovisual. So it's fascinating to kind of see it play out, is that give them that little bit of experience, and it can change their entire career trajectory. So
something along Larry's line there that he mentioned just a moment ago. I've had past students that have spoken to me that said, "Hey, I got a job at such and such. They're in their field, but they go to that first conference and they watch their boss struggling with the conference system in the room, and they save the day." I hear this all the time from my student workers. They're saving the day wherever they work at by stepping up and taking care of the boss. And pretty soon they're in their boss's favor because they're able to help out, something that people get frustrated with because they've learned how to deal with it. I got to reach way back early. When I first got hired at OSU, this is back in '99, folks, we take care of athletic events. And there was this one student that he just struck me as being, you'd go to an athletic event, he had shirt and tie on, press slacks. If we ever had events we used to set up around campus, this student was always dressed to the hilt. I remember as a new employee, I thought, this student really cares about what he's doing, his image when he's out being the forward-facing person for our department. I'm happy to say that over the years, I've been able to see him with Planar, Clarity, and now Christy when I go to Infocom. He has been in this field, and I'll tell you what, he is just as pressed, just as professional. And so for me, early on in the career when I got into the AV industry, I kind of look at him as my inspiration of what students can be. And I don't want to say his name, but I've told him this in person, but because he was only here for 2 years, early in my career, but he really gave me that foundation, what I thought students could be working in our department.
That's great. And I think that is a fantastic way to kind of wrap this discussion here. So for anybody who's interested in listening, I think, and we'll put contact information in the show notes, but certainly reach out to Dawn and to Lawrence and talk about how they're leveraging students. But reach out to any of us. We're happy to share our stories with success working with students at our institutions. I think there's no excuse to take advantage of students. I mean that in the best way possible, but to leverage students as a fantastic resource, it's beneficial for them. It's beneficial for you as a department, and I think it only improves the future of the entire AV industry. Well, we've managed to ruin yet another episode of AV Super Friends Off the Rails. You can contact us with questions, topic ideas, or general complaints at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com. If you complain loud enough, we might just invite you on the show.
Nice work, everyone. Sharp broadcast. Really good. Everyone on the floor as well. Really a lot of hustle. I liked it.
The opinions expressed by the AV SuperFriends are solely those of the individuals and do not represent their respective institutions, organizations, companies, or clients.